Today's video, guys, oil change time, Can-Am X3. I'm going to talk about how to go about it from different tips I've seen from different videos online. So let's get started. All right, guys, so there's a lot of videos out there doing the oil change on the Can-Am X3, and I try to take a little bit of parts of each one of those to kind of figure out the best way to do the oil change. There were several things that I saw from different videos. I really liked the Rocky Mountain ATV video. In fact, I bought their oil change kit from them, which was awesome because it comes with all the OEM filters and crush washers and the O-ring for the oil filter cap. It's got the synthetic OEM oil that's recommended for the car. So that was great. I was pretty excited about getting that from them. I watched their video. The thing I don't like about their video is their video has the rear skid plate removed. So that's not a realistic thing that you're going to do when you change the oil. They also took off a couple of the breather tubes for the clutch to be able to pour the oil, which again, you wouldn't want to do all that. They did it like they said in the video for the video purposes, but I wanted to look at more of a real world example. Found a couple other YouTube channels out there that showed a lot of them. There was a lot of mess. Trying to get that oil through that skid plate is not easy. I'm going to do my best. We'll see what happens, but I'm going to do what I think is the best way to go about it. So we'll kind of get started and we'll go from there. Okay, so guys, at this point, car's nice and warmed up. I've got my 17 millimeter, and I believe it's a 10 millimeter for the two drain holes, or sorry, the drain plugs. I've got my Drifters Products flexible funnel, and I've got my extension and my wrench. I've got my oil pan down underneath, a couple of rubber gloves. So what I'm gonna do is right back here, if you see that hole in the skid plate, so just above that hole, and it's really hard to get the camera in there to see it because of the angle, but right above that hole is the two drain plugs, our smaller and larger drain plug. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my socket up there and I'm just gonna break them loose so that way they can start, you know, I can then loosen them by hand. I don't wanna take them all the way out because I don't want oil dumping everywhere. And then I'm gonna apply the funnel up and in. So let me start by breaking them loose, then I'm gonna show you the file. All right, so I popped them loose. The way I did it is I ran my hand right up through here, and then the socket, right up through here, okay? So by doing this, I was able to reach in through here, because you can feel the two bolts. They're right there. They're actually pretty easy to get to with your hand. But what I was able to do is just use my hand to guide the wrench over those bolts. They're like right there. They're hard to see. You can't really see it. Oh, they're right back in there. But you can see the two right there. So now what I'm gonna do is take my funnel, I'm gonna squeeze it like this, and I'm gonna wedge it up in there, and then let it expand. So now, I can reach in from the top side, loosen those nuts all the way out by hand, and let the oil drain right through there without getting all over the skid plate. You can see here it's starting to come. I'm gonna drop that down in there, and I'm gonna see, let me see if I can do it on camera. It's kind of up in there. I might have to put the camera down to be able to do it, but you can see the oil is already starting to drip out of there. So I probably got a couple drops going into the skid plate, nothing too big. By the way, you know, the car's pretty warm still, which I like the car to be nice and warm. Just be careful because those drain plug bolts get pretty hot. So you don't want to be burning yourself, so wearing some gloves will help. But I've almost got the main one, and see if I can get up in here and show you guys once it drops. Almost got it. Funnels. There we go. So there you go. So the main one is dropped, and then my little funnel just kind of sits in here and directs the oil right through. So I'm going to let that drain, then I'll pull the other one and do the exact same thing. Okay, lo and behold, we got a little bit of a mess. Not anything too crazy. So you got to make sure that funnel, let me try to get in here. All right. So So there's the funnel right there, which is the black guy with the white sticker on the front of it. You can see I got some oil spilled down onto the skid plate. So when the oil drops out, you got to keep that funnel tilted really far back. You can actually even see some running off that back corner dripping right there. There's really no way to get the funnel back in there, which kind of sucks. So, you know, it's going to just in general, I think, be a little bit of a messy job. So there's a better shot there. See, I've got the funnel all the way back as far as it'll go, and it's still got a little drip going on there. So I've already poured some kitty litter down, which, by the way, if you don't already know that, kitty litter is great for cleaning up oil. It absorbs a lot of it, and you can sweep it right up. So that helps with the cleanup and less mess. So I'm going to need to get up inside of here and clean up the oil in the skid plate because I don't want all the oil sitting in there attracting mud and dust. So I'm just going to wipe it out with some shop towels as best as I can. Then I'll probably go back and just spray some like Simple Green and then hose it out really good. But the oil is all mostly drained out. I'm going to let it continue to drain. And then we'll put the new crush washers and the drain plugs back in. I'm also going to tackle the oil filter here in a second. I'm going to show you how that goes. All right, guys, so while we're waiting for our oil to dry, or not dry, I'm sorry, to drain, I'm going to show you how to tackle the filter. So I'm going to kind of come inside here. So there's the filter. So these are just T30s. So all you're going to do is get in here with the T30, crack those guys loose. Oh, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Let's flip it here. There we go. So there's one. This one here is a little bit further back in there. And if you don't want to use the T30, you could also put it's got a socket head on the outside of it as well. Like this one's a little tough because you got that line running through here. So I might even just go back in with a little wrench. But I'm going to loosen these guys all the way up, take them out, and that's going to give me access to the oil filter. Now I have been told as well and read to put some shop towels around this guy because some oil could kind of spill out as you take this off. And then you're going to replace the gasket and the new filter, so we're going to do that as well. So I'm going to go through and get these bolts out for you. I'll show you what it looks like when it comes off. Okay, guys, so one thing I want to remind you about, so our oil filter cap is right there. And what's right above it? Well, the turbo's right there. You got your exhaust, your catalytic converter. So this whole area gets really hot. So it's nice to have the car nice and warm when you work on it, get that oil to flow really cleaning and get everything out of the engine. But just be careful because you got a lot of heat right there. So I've got a little shop rag here. For the back nut back in here, our bolt, I used an 8mm little wrench, and that worked really well. It was easier to get in there than the socket set up with the T30. So I've just kind of tucked this around it here. We're gonna just lift this guy right off. It comes right off. And then the oil filter is right there. So you kind of reach in and you can just kind of grab that oil filter. It's a little bit tricky here because it's slippery. And you got to be really careful because again, it's going to be nice and warm too. So again, I'm kind of keeping this napkin around here, or not napkin, sorry, shop towel. So that way it kind of absorbs any oil as this guy comes out. But it's loose in there. You just got to kind of work it out a little bit. You might even use a screwdriver or something to kind of pry it out, which I think I'm going to do really quick. So let me grab a screwdriver. I'll pry it out really fast. Or pry, sorry. All right, so I just took the screwdriver to get a little edge on it and pried it right out. And there it is. So there's our oil filter. So I'm just going to kind of drop that down right into the oil pan here. I'll put it on that little peg so it can drain out. So now we've got our new spot for our oil filter. So right down in there. So I'm going to go ahead and let this kind of cool down a little bit. I'm going to clean everything up and we'll start putting things back together and add the oil. All right, guys, so while waiting for the oil, I want to talk a little bit about the drain plugs. So you got a couple crush washers here that will need to be replaced. When you buy it through Rocky Mountain ATV, which is who I went through, I like it because they give you basically everything that you need. I got kind of a little bit of a mess going on here, but they give you your filter. They give you 4 quarts of the proper oil, the 0W40 XPS lubricant. This is the full synthetic. They do sell a semi-synthetic as well, which I think is normally used in different types of weather conditions. And they give you the package with all the crush washers and gaskets, so everything's ready to go. So, you know, it's like, I think it was like $55 or so. I'm not I don't remember exactly. If you go to Rocky Mountain ATV's website, you'll be able to see that. But it's nice that you can just spend 55 bucks, get everything you need, and be ready to go. Now, I just took the main drain plug. There's our 17 millimeter, and there's a magnet down inside of there. So I just ran a Q-tip in there. It's all pretty black and gross. I didn't see anything I would say is really metallic. There was a little bit of chunks and stuff in there, so I kind of took it off and rolled them with my finger to see if they were soft and pliable, which they were. So I think it's just a little bit of gunk or some dust or dirt that's worked its way down in there. It was just sticking there. It wasn't really adhered to it with the magnet. And then you've got your smaller 10 millimeter drain plug as well. So I'm going to clean these guys up. The Rocky Mountain ATV guys use a contact cleaner, so I just got some of their Maxima contact cleaner. Any contact cleaner would work, but it's a nice way to be able to clean these arts out so they're nice and fresh and ready to go when you put your fresh crush washers and reinstall them. All right, guys, so I cleaned them off with a contact cleaner, so we have nice clean parts. Got rid of the old crush washers there, so those are out of here. We're going to bust this open. Man, I cannot talk today, guys. Sorry. And we're going to put on our new gasket so we're ready to go. And then we're going to install these guys first, so that way we can get the drain plug set to where we're ready to go. We're going to torque them to the proper specs, and then we'll be ready to add our oil. I'm going to show you how we add the oil, and we're also going to throw the new filter in as well. All right, guys. So old filters over there draining into the oil. Got our new filter. I went in, like I said, cleaned it, the cap. I applied the new O-ring, and I dipped my finger into some of the fresh oil and just ran it all the way around it, so that's why it looks shiny. That's going to help prevent a seal. I also sprayed a little contact cleaner over the top of this guy just to make sure everything's good to go. So what we're going to do now is, this is the end of the oil filter that goes down, which has got the little rubber gasket guy. So you're going to come down in here, you're going to drop it down, and it'll just kind of press over. You can feel it kind of seat. So we're good to go there. We're going to come back, get our cap, and we're going to drop our cap right on top. And it's going to take a little bit of pressure because it's getting the seat and that O-ring down in there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to basically make sure everything's pressed in. We're going to put our 3 bolts in, and we're going to tighten that down to spec. So let me get those guys tightened up and good to go. Then we're going to go put the drain plugs back in as well. All right, so I got the cap back on. It takes a little bit of work just getting it lined up. I got my 3 bolts back in there, and then I'm going to go through and I'm going to torque it. The torque for this particular setup is 7.4 pounds, foot-pounds. So right there, I'm good. And I'm going to go through and do the rest of these off camera. So 7.4 torque pounds on these guys. All right, I've got this guy torqued at my 7.4 pounds. Not a lot of room on that back one. You might want to try using a small extension. That kind of helped to get back in there. So now what we're going to do, and I've already shown you what I've already done, is right up in here. Again, super hard to see, but we got our spots that our drain plugs go in. I already shot a bunch of contact cleaner all over those to clean them off really good. And now I'm going to go through and install with the new crush washers the 2 drain plugs. The bigger guy is 22 foot-pounds. Smaller guy is going to be 11 foot-pounds. So it's just, the smaller one's just half of the big one. So as long as you remember the 22, and then you cut it in half for that guy. So I'm gonna do that off camera because I'm gonna have to use both hands and kind of get up there and guide them in there. But once I get them guided in, torqued down, we'll be ready to add some oil. So let me knock this out here real quick, and then we'll move to how we're gonna add the oil. All right, guys, so to add the oil, there's the dipstick, which is also where you fill your oil, and you've got the 2 big breather lines that are right in the way. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna remove this snorkel line. I'm actually just gonna take it's just a single screw, which is either a hose clamp. I'm gonna take it off and pop it off and push it out of the way. You could also pull it off the hanger here, but I'm not even gonna do that because that should give me enough room to get in here and add the oil. So let me get that out of the way, get a funnel in there, and then we can start adding oil. Okay, guys, so I found a funnel. Got a funnel that I like that sits down in there nice. And below it, you can see right underneath the funnel is that outlet for the clutch. Now, what you don't want is any oil to spill down into that guy. You can see the belt and everything down there. So what I'm gonna do to make this really simple is I'm going to shove a towel right down in here. So now that guy is completely covered, so I can put my oil in, and if anything ever overspilled, it would go right under there. So I'm gonna put the 3.7 quarts of oils that it requires in there, and then we'll measure it and see where we're at. Okay guys, so I've already got 3 of the quarts in there, which I poured straight out of the bottle. Over here though, for the last one, the 0.7 is 22.4 ounces. So I've already done 10 ounces. I'm gonna add my other 12.4 ounces to it. And then that way I can measure that 0.7 correctly and get that in there. So I'm gonna dump this last bit of oil in. This is a really cool funnel. It's called Ratio Right, and I used it for mixing like 2-stroke motors and different things. But it's just nice to have hanging around as a quick way to be able to measure. So I'm gonna dump this last bit of oil in, and then we can check the level and hopefully fire it up. All right, guys, so I got my my oil in the car. A couple things, so don't forget to put your intake, or actually I think it's the outtake breather back on. So you wanna make sure that's back on. When you check the oil, there's a couple things I'll tell you that I learned watching the ATV, Rocky Mountain ATV video is get in, start the car, let it run for 30 seconds to about a minute, shut it off, let it sit for 30 seconds to a minute, then go in and check your oil level. You want to make sure you check it after you've run it. If not, it's going to read really, really high. And the way you check the oil level is you screw it, you clean it, screw the stick all the way in, then screw it out and bring it out. So different types of vehicles, sometimes they don't want you to thread it in, sometimes they do. With the Can-Am, you're supposed to thread it all the way in, and I was right at that max oil line where it's supposed to be. After you do this oil change, bring oil with you just in case you need to top it off. Now, another thing I did for my cleanup is I already sprayed a bunch of Simple Green down in here. I did that using just one of those hand pump sprayers, which I showed in my very first video I did from Ordinary Garage, and that bit I used it for cleaning. But I sprayed it all, I let it soak, and then I hosed it all off. And I can even see, I don't know if you guys can see it, if the camera will pick it up, it's kind of rainbow. So again, we're getting that oil out of there, which is great. So that's all cleaned up and good to go. So that way, we're pretty much all set. All right, guys, so that's pretty much gonna do it for our oil change video. Definitely not as clean as I was hoping. A little bit of spillage there. I don't know if you can see on the ground, I got my kitty litter working. So I'll just sweep all that up here in a little bit. The flexible funnel worked okay. It's cool how you can kind of wedge it up in there. One of the other videos I saw a guy use one of the bigger plastic funnels, but it was a little softer. I almost wonder if you could take a heat gun and warm it up just so it's more pliable to kind of get it down in there. A little bit bigger funnel would be nice. But overall, you know, pretty good, pretty easy. You know, I didn't have to put it on a jack or lift it up or anything. I was able to reach up in there and guide the wrenches in. Again, a little bit of mess, but easy clean up the Simple Green, spraying that in there. And actually, I'll show you what I used, which I was talking about earlier. So I just used just one of these pressure sprayers, these pump sprayers you get at like Home Depot. Filled that with some Simple Green and water. Spray that down in there, let it soak in, because it's a good degreaser, it's cheap. And it allowed me to degrease and get that all cleaned off. So just don't forget to make sure you double check the torque specs. The oil filter, a little bit tricky, having a little extension to get up top because you can't really get it down in there. But those, you know, are, again, it's just about getting that just right. It was like the 7.4 foot-pounds per torque. And then don't forget to torque your other guys. I like the ATV, the Rocky Mountain ATV kit. You know, I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that. I was just looking for a complete kit that had everything I needed that wasn't expensive. And having the OEM oil, having the OEM gaskets and everything, the crush washers all in there for the filter, the price of it, it's just simple and easy, and it was there so quick. So I'm in California, so they're right in the middle of the country for the most part, a little bit on the west side. You know, so a little more on the west, yeah, quite a bit more on the West Coast side, but I think no matter where you're at, you're gonna get it in a few days, so that's pretty much awesome. So that's pretty much it, guys. Like and subscribe if you have any better tips of doing the oil change a little bit easier. Feel free to put those in the comments below. And that's it, guys. Take care. Have a good one.